was in places was starting to pineapple a little bit,
Yeah.
which it does when it gets too dry.
Hmm.
And but nonetheless, we've been okay for the last 30 days for the most part because we did get some rains in there, and then for the last 7 days, just from the beginning of this month,
Yeah.
we received 1.5 inches, which put us 4/10 of an inch above normal.
Okay. All righty.
But the hot
And that's a
weather,
start.
the other player in this is
Uh-huh.
the temperatures and the sunshine,
Yeah.
which have a dramatic effect on
Well,
things growing.
weather having an effect on things growing, and also weather has an effect on things falling down a lot,
Yeah.
including trees that get blown over, and trees that get struck by lightning, large limbs that come down, things of that nature. And it's probably kind of easy now to look up at a tree that is covered with leaves and say, okay, well, that branch has nothing on it. That's a dead one. It needs to come out of there. But if you can't reach it right now, then you're going to have to really keep an eye on it, aren't you?
Yes, we never know. It's very difficult to tell when things are going to come down,
Mm-hmm.
and you can have dead limbs, dead trees standing for years.
Yeah.
And you look at that and you say, how in the world is that nothing's ever happened to that? And then one day it topples over. And then other things you look and, no, there's only one branch there, no big deal.
Yeah.
Well, then the next storm that comes through, the next burst of air, and that thing snaps out of there and comes down.
Hey, let's take a caller this morning. Good morning.
Good morning. I have a question about a small Japanese maple that we transplanted like in the fall of last year, so it's only about 3 to 4 foot tall. But the leaves have like a white or light colored spots on them, and they appear to be dropping right now.
Oh.
Bleaching, on those red leafed maples, and there's just a host of different specific cultivars of those Japanese maples. So there's a lot of variations in both the leaf shape, the leaf size, the tree size. Some are very dwarf. Others, will get 25, 30 feet tall. On those smaller cultivars, it's not uncommon to get some bleaching out. And because of the red color of the leaf, when you get leaf spots on there, or even if they get too much sun exposure or heat exposure, those leaves will turn that kind of beige or almost white color. And they'll definitely do that with some leaf spotting. Now, there could be some stress involved here, even though you transplanted that last fall. If it hasn't gotten reacclimated to its new site, depending on the root system and how much damage may have been done to that, or roots that were cut off, then that can influence any kind of symptoms that we might be seeing now on that plant, especially with the hot temperatures we've had in winds. That can really sweep the moisture out of those plants, and so they can start to show some signs of stress. Now, within the last, I don't know, how long has that spotting been occurring?
I believe we noticed it just after the leaves had formed, like spring.
Okay. Yeah, and a little bit of that is not uncommon at all. And again, depending on the site, how much exposure, if it's in full sun. Now, does it appear? So there are some leaves dropping now.
Mm-hmm.
And are they? How many? I mean, is it like
just a few here
just
and
a
there.
few here and there? Okay,
Mm-hmm.
That's good. Just make sure that now we've had some rains here in the last 2 days, which will help. But if we get into dry spells again or very hot conditions again, just check the soil moisture. You don't need to automatically water it once a week or once a day, but check the soil moisture first, and this goes in general because we can assume that things are dry and they might be dry, but we can also assume they're dry, and then you get a couple inches down in the soil and there's still moisture there. So just kind of try to take the edge off, water it as needed. And I always like to give them a good drink of water rather than give them a gallon a day or something like that. It's better to give them 5 gallons once a week. Give them one good deep watering rather than try to just keep the soil moist constantly.
Okay, as far as like spraying the leaves or anything, that wouldn't help.
Not unless we identified that there was a specific disease or insect problem that we needed to address. Because a lot of times it'll be just an environmental condition or a physiological plant problem that we get this leaf spotting from versus something caused by a specific pest. So if we can identify, and a lot of times on those, even if we get some leaf spotting on ornamental plants, the plant in general, as long as it's healthy, we don't need to treat that. Now, if we get into things like leaf spotting is one thing, and there's several different leaf spot organisms that will cause that, but they usually don't cause a decline in the plant. There are other things like anthracnose, which can cause spotting at first, but then we'll get whole blotchy areas of leaves becoming affected, and that can also get into the branches. Those types of diseases we need to address. And again,
okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
All righty. It is Indiana in the Morning here on WCCS. He's Bob Pollock. A couple of things I noted on the Penn State Extension website. I just wanted to bring them up to you. One is there's some sort of disease affecting birds. Have you read about this?
Yes.
The songbirds that
Yes.
are dying, and Penn State Extension is getting involved in it now in Pennsylvania. Generally, this is in the southeastern part of the state, but 70 birds affected there. Neurological and eye crusting going on with these birds. So what do you know about that?
About as much as you do.
Whatever I read.
Well, and there's a lot of, somebody obviously noticed that there were some dead birds that were dying and affected. That prompted them to make some phone calls, and then the Game Commission got involved and others, and so now they're trying to look at, well, what is the cause of that? Some years back, we had some eye diseases, but they were able to identify the specific, I think it was a conjunctivitis, actually, of some of the songbirds. And that was more specific, but I still think they're trying to now, is there an organism involved that's causing this? And they're trying to figure that out, but they want to know if there's other places. This is just concentrated in that southeast area, but they have seen that in other states as well.
Yeah, a
so
bunch of
it's
them.
not just in southeast Pennsylvania and into New Jersey. It's also been west of us.
In a lot of cases, they say that it corresponds to the emergence of the cicadas in that particular round of cicadas, but they say they've not established any connection there just yet, but they're examining every possibility they can. So they're urging you to report if you see the birds. I guess they have balance problems, crusty eyes, and neurological problems where their heads are shaking. So, and it's cardinals, blue jays, robins, pretty much all the songbirds.
Yes.
That's scary. I don't want to hear that. The other thing was something Penn State put out, actually Extension put out in the middle of last month, and it had to do with when you take out an invasive species, a plant, what do you replace it with? That's going to be a native plant or something that won't be invasive and take over and cause harm. And we don't have time to get very in-depth with that, but you can look it up on the Extension website, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that's right, because something will replace it. You take one thing out, whether it's a native species or a non-native species, something else will replace that.
Nature abhors a vacuum.
And you think you're doing good by taking the one thing out, and it could get worse. It could get better, but it can, the flip side's true, where we can get something even more evasive coming in.
Yeah.
So we just have to be cognizant of that and realize that, something will take over. And it might just be weeds.
Yeah. But eradicating some of those invasives is not as easy as just ripping
No.
them out.
No.
Some of them, they put down suckers and they'll come right back up.
Usually some forethought and some planning involved that, okay, we're going to clear this out, but then in doing so, what will be invited to come back in? What are the conditions that are there that will, and what seeds and, all those things we can't see, whether it be hickory nuts or, acorns or for oak trees and, what's in the ground and what weed species. There's a lot of weed seeds that can live on for years. Some die off and will rot within a year or two. Others may live for 10 or 15 years. And then when we open things up, let light in, disturb the soil, bring those seeds closer to the surface that they're able to germinate and grow, they'll take off and can take over an area faster than some more desirable species might be able to.
Nature.
It's amazing.
It is. It really, really is.
What's
So watch out for 6 songbirds and report them to the state, to the Agriculture Department. Is that who's taking the calls?
I think it is. I don't have that in front of me, but yeah.
Do that. It's Indiana in the Morning. Thanks, Bob.
You're welcome. Thank you.